What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Ride with Kai here. Thank you so much for joining me. It is a new year, so happy new year, everybody. Hope everyone had a nice Christmas. With 2025 here, it's a time of New Year's resolutions. A lot of you might be thinking of starting to ride in 2025. So what better time to talk about how to stay alive your first year on a motorcycle? We are going to take the Panigale V4 out in just a moment, but before we do that, just want to make clear, this is the bike that I started on, Panigale V2. I had rode other bikes before, but this was really the first bike that this is kind of what started it all, was this Panigale V2. Rode it for about 4 years with success, never had a crash, never had a collision. So, and I know 4 years is not 30 years like some of you have been riding for 50 years, I totally get that, but what I'll share with you is what I did in those 4 years to stay upright, stay alive, and without injury. All right, guys, let's get this show on the road. Panigale V4 cold start. I have to admit, the cold start on these bikes is really not that impressive, but here it is. Yeah, so I mean, overall, it sounds pretty good, pretty throaty, pretty deep, but not the most impressive cold start, I must say. But let's get it going. And here we go. So, first thing I'll say is nothing that I can suggest or nothing I can say or really anybody else can say will 100% keep you from being killed or injured on a motorcycle. Nothing is 100% with these things. These things are inherently dangerous, they just are. However, that being said, there's a lot of things you can do to minimize that, especially in your first year when you're just learning. And now when you're first learning, the single best advice I can give you, and it's more important than anything else, is you've gotta make good decisions. It's more important than the type of bike that you start with. It's more important than the type of gear that you buy. It's more important than even any class that you could take. If you can buy the slowest motorcycle out there that money can buy. You can buy the slowest one. You could have the best safety gear money can buy. You can take every beginner motorcycle class that you can take. None of those things matter if you don't make good decisions on these bikes. Now, when I say make good decisions, most of you know what that means. It means don't ride way too fast, don't participate in road rage, just don't do stupid stuff. If you don't do dumb stuff, you're going to be way better off. If you do dumb stuff, no gear is going to save you. So let me tell you this, fatal motorcycle collisions, about 30% involve alcohol. About 30% of motorcycle collisions also involve the rider not having a license at all. 34% also involve speed. So you see, those are things: DUI, not having a license, and speed. All those things have to do with poor decision making. And we've all heard people say, well, I'm not worried about you as the motorcycle rider, I'm worried about the other people on the road. Well, that's proven to not be true either. Most motorcycle collisions are caused by the rider. A lot of them are solo. You're just by yourself and you just go right off the road, you target fixate or whatever the case may be, just going too fast, can't react to changes in traffic. And all those things can be avoided if you just made better decisions. A lot of motorcycle collisions, they have to do with a car turning left in front of the rider. So almost like a broadside or T-bone style collision. That's how a lot of, especially fatal motorcycle collisions occur. Well, sometimes I understand you cannot avoid those, but a lot of times it's because part of the reason why those collisions occur and why they're so severe is because the rider is riding way too fast. So it still means that yes, the person in the car that was turning left, they should have yielded. I agree, correct. However, you have to be realistic too. I mean, if you're going 90 in the opposing direction, it's going to be hard to see you. So especially when you first start riding, I mean, don't do that. You know, I know it's hard. These motorcycles, they're fast, especially sport bikes. It's tempting, I get it. I'm not going to say I always ride under the speed limit. I speed too, I totally get it. But when you first start riding, when you're brand new, just refrain from doing that. Don't do that, because the thing with speed is, if you are going at a low rate of speed, even if you make a mistake, you have time to correct it. So let's say you target fixate, maybe, you know, you're taking a left or a right, or even just a slight kink in the road, and you target fixate. If you're going slow enough, you have time to realize, oh, I'm target fixating, I need to, you know, adjust, I need to turn my head, or I need to move my eyes, or maybe I just need to slow down, whatever the case may be, and make the turn. If you're going slow enough, I mean, you could target fixate and still make the turn. The issue comes when you're going way too fast and then you target fixate. You don't have time to correct that error and you end up crashing. Same goes for a lot of people. The front tire will wash out on their bike because they either apply the front brake too abruptly, or they're trying to apply the front brake too abruptly and they're trying to turn. Okay, so I mean, you could wash out your front tire at 10 miles an hour too. You can do that, but it's a lot less likely at a lower speed. If you're going 50, 60 and you try to brake and turn, especially on a lot of these beginner bikes that don't have a very sticky front tire, they don't have very good suspension, the ABS system is not that good, it's likely that you're going to crash. It's likely that front tire is going to wash out, way more so than if you were going at a lower speed. Same goes, you may be doing everything correctly, everything correct. You're not target fixating, you're counter steering, you're looking where you need to go, everything is correct. Well, in the middle of a turn, if you happen to notice a piece of debris like a retread tire or something like that, if you're going at a reasonable speed, you can right the bike and avoid that debris. Whereas if you're going at a higher speed, you may or may not be able to do that. And even if there is a collision, so let's say you're not able to avoid the crash, you wipe out. Okay, if you're going 30, 40, you're probably going to be injured, but it's probably not going to be fatal. And it doesn't mean that, I'm not saying that you can't be killed in a 30-mile-an-hour motorcycle collision. You definitely can, but it's a lot less likely as opposed to if you're going 70, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. So just take it slow. And the way you take it slow, for me, what I did, this is just what I did, is I would ride Sunday morning. This is when I first started riding. I'd only ride Sunday morning. I'd only ride on roads that I was very familiar with. I knew that there were no weird transitions in the roadway. There were no weird tar snakes. There was no construction zone. I knew that there wouldn't be traffic there. I would ride in areas that are very familiar. And since it was in the morning, I knew I had plenty of time to practice. I had plenty of time to ride. I wouldn't run out of daylight or anything like that. I'd check the weather, make sure it wasn't going to be foggy or rainy or anything like that. And then that way you could still practice real riding on a public roadway. I know a lot of people, when they first start riding there, they ride in a parking lot a lot. And that's fine too. I think that's great. That's a great idea. But it's a lot different than riding on the road, where you have to be aware of other cars. You have to be able to learn how to predict what other people are doing. So, and I think too, as motorcyclists, we like to overcomplicate things. When you first start riding, don't worry about your body position too much. Don't worry about keeping your toes on the foot pegs instead of the arch of your foot. Don't worry about, you know, the bend in your arms and stuff like that. I mean, I see videos all the time of people trying to show beginner riders how to ride, and they're critiquing every little thing. They're on a sport bike, you know, don't sit straight up and down like this, and yeah, I mean, those are things that you shouldn't be doing. Just sit away from the tank stuff. Yes, okay, those are important, but when you first start riding, don't worry about that. Just ride whatever, put your feet however way is comfortable, sit on the seat however way is comfortable. If sitting straight up and down you can see better, okay, whatever, that's fine. Don't worry about stuff like that. Just worry about the ride itself, worry about paying attention to traffic, learning, just learn the very, very, very basics first. Just try to get a feel for how a motorcycle reacts and how it responds first. Don't worry about your hand position and all that other stuff. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. We're way overcomplicating this. And I mean, and honestly, it's for a new rider, I wouldn't have a cardo, I would have no music, I wouldn't vlog, because when you talk, even now as I'm riding and talking, I could tell that I am distracted. And we know from studies that have been done recently, humans basically can't multitask. Basically, no matter what anybody has told you, they can't really multitask. And we've also been told the myth of, okay, hands-free devices are safe. Well, I think they're probably safer than not having a hands-free device, but from studies that have been done by law enforcement groups, we know that oftentimes talking on the phone and driving is actually worse than driving while impaired by alcohol. So humans cannot multitask. So when you first start riding, don't do that. Don't listen to music. Don't do anything other than just riding. Okay, let's take a little break here. Let's talk a little more. I think I can give you guys a little more detail if I'm not riding and trying to talk at the same time. Okay, so let's hop off and take a minute here. So now let's continue with the whole distracted riding part. Part of that includes group rides as well. So when you're a new rider, don't go on any group rides. It's going to be tempting, they're fun. I totally get it, but when you're on a group ride, even when you're with other safe riders, you're still being distracted by other things that are going on. When you first start riding, you need to be concentrating just on riding itself. And I don't want to reveal what I do for a living. I know a lot of you guys have asked. I just don't really want to share that with the whole world. But what I do for a living, it does allow me to see a lot of collisions that are fatal. I get to see a lot of the detail, what occurred. I get to see post-investigation. I get to see the criminal side of things as well, as far as what happens with the person who caused the collision, as far as criminal penalties, civil penalties. I see all that stuff, okay? Motorcycle collisions, most of the time, regardless of what the data says, most of the time, the motorcycle rider was doing something very stupid. I've seen fatal collision reports where the rider is going 170 miles an hour. I've seen fatal collision reports where the rider's BAC is 0.2. I've seen fatal collisions where the rider's in some mountainous area like Mosquito Ridge or Lake Berryessa or Mulholland Drive, and they're going 2, 3, 4 times the speed limit and die, when they live just an hour or two away from multiple racetracks. I mean, and that's what I mean, guys. Does that make any sense to you? Does that make any sense to go out on a group ride in a mountainous area, go 3, 4 times the speed limit, when you live an hour away from a racetrack, when you live an hour away from Thunder Hill, you live an hour away from Sonoma or Laguna Seca or Streets of Willow? It makes zero sense to do that. So that's what I mean. Don't do stupid stuff like that. And let me tell you this too, a lot of people think that riding a motorcycle at reckless speeds or just riding recklessly, that it would only affect you as the rider. Well, let me tell you that if you think that riding a 400 or 500 pound sport bike with a 200 pound rider on it, so 600-700 pounds total, at a speed of 100 miles an hour, and if you broadside or T-bone a car, if you don't think that the people in the car are going to be hurt or killed, you're wrong. So I've also seen a fatal collision where that exact thing happened. Rider was going in excess of 90 miles an hour. A car turned left in front of them. There was a 2-year-old girl in a car seat in the back. Broadside collision occurs. Motorcycle rider is killed, as well as the 2-year-old in the back seat. So think about that. I mean, it can affect more than just you. Same goes, we've seen those collisions where the motorcycle
people are trying to show off at a Cars and Coffee or whatever, and the motorcycle goes into a crowd or something like that. I mean, those things can happen. It can affect more than just you.
All right, let's go ahead and head back. So for you guys looking at starting to ride in 2025, man, it's so much fun. It's so worth it. But just be honest with yourself. If you still feel that you are a little irresponsible, if you're one of these people who, you know, feels like they have to get a Ninja 250 because they'll kill themselves on anything else, well then you probably shouldn't be riding at all. If you're at the point where you are trying to restrict your decision making by buying a bike that's slow, then you probably shouldn't be riding at all. Maybe it's just not your time yet, and that's totally okay. We've all been immature at some point. I know now at 35, I make way better decisions now than when I was 20. It's just, I just do. And there's some people who are completely mature by 20, and there's others who are not. Everybody's just different, but be honest with yourself, and you're gonna be just fine. You're going to enjoy a long career riding a motorcycle.
And we're back. So you guys use your head, make good decisions. Don't put yourself in a bad situation when you don't have to. Of course, some collisions, they're just unavoidable. I've seen videos of motorcycle riders where they're doing everything right. There's just nothing they could have done, and unfortunately they were involved in a severe collision where sometimes they've lost their life, and that's horrible. But most of the time there is something you can do. There's the decisions that you make prior to that collision are really what determine your fate. Now, when I say make good decisions, that means watching your speed. If you see solid double yellow lines, don't make a pass there. If you're going to lane filter or even lane split, here in California, we are allowed to lane split. Surprisingly, it's one of the few things that we're able to do. Here in California, I guess lane splitting and stealing are basically the only things that are legal. Everything else is illegal. But what I see here all the time is the motorcyclists will be traveling at a speed that's way too fast while they're lane splitting. So the flow of traffic will be 25, 35 miles an hour, and the motorcyclists will be going 50 to 60 miles an hour. When you think about that, is that really a good idea? Same goes for, I know a few people, I personally know 2 people who have crashed their bikes trying to get rid of their chicken strips on the street. Just don't do it. It's stupid. If you're gonna go to a bar, have a couple drinks, maybe you feel fine, you're probably not over the legal limit, but even so, I mean, is that a good idea? Probably not. Going on a mountain road, trying to keep up with more experienced riders or even riders who are also beginners, I mean, is that a good idea too? No, it's not. Eliminate a lot of the unforced errors too. So don't listen to music, don't listen to podcasts. We all know how engaging some podcasts can be. It can be very distracting. Check the weather, check the traffic conditions. You can check construction zones. We have applications like Waze now where the application will tell you everything you need to know about the route you're going on before you even leave the house. There's no reason to not use that type of tool. If there was some type of storm the prior day and there's probably debris in the road, probably don't want to ride then. If you're feeling a little funky, like maybe you're starting to get the flu or something like that, then probably don't want to ride then either. Eliminate any scenario that can elevate your risk of a collision. Anything that you have control over, make sure to eliminate that. And I'm telling you guys, because of my current employment, I've seen the result of so many motorcycle collisions that the vast majority could have easily been avoided. Not all of them, but the vast majority could have been avoided very, very easily if the rider just made better decisions. I've seen a bunch of videos where you have influencers trying to tell people how to not look like a new rider. They tell you to, don't sit straight up and down and squeeze the tank and make sure your toes are on the pegs, make sure that they're not like this and so forth. Man, don't worry about any of that stuff. You can fix each one of those things later. Just fix them one at a time. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just focus on just riding, focus on the traffic conditions, focus on what you're doing. Don't focus on exact body position and how you look. I mean, if anybody makes fun of you for being new, just ignore them. They're idiots. I mean, anybody who makes fun of somebody for being new is just stupid. I mean, at some point, everybody was new. At some point, even Josh Heron was new. Everybody has that first day. So don't worry about any of that stuff. Just focus on being safe. Focus on riding the motorcycle. You can fix all the other little details later. And I want to share a little story with you guys. When I was in the market to purchase my Panigale V4, I had found an older Ducati dealership. It was a Ducati, Kawasaki, Suzuki, and Husqvarna dealer. Been there a while, kind of mom and pop type vibes. So I walk in there, salesman is an older gentleman. He tells me he's been selling bikes for over 50 years. And towards the end of his career, so now he's retired, but the last few years of his career before he retired, he was selling bikes in a walker. So he was navigating the showroom, selling bikes from a walker. That tells you how much of an OG this dude is. But when we got to talking, I was honest with him, told him I'm brand new. I was looking at a Panigale V4, and I said that I had been doing a lot of research and had seen a lot of people say, you know, really, that's too big of a bike to start on. You really should start on a Ninja 400 or R3 or something like that. And what this gentleman told me was, you know, I've been doing this a very, very long time. I've sold thousands of bikes. I've pretty much seen it all. And the size of the bike has nothing to do with safety. It's absolutely the rider. And as we got to talking, he said that he's even sold Hayabusas for people's first bikes. And when he explained it, that some people, they're 6'5", 6'6", they're 295-pound bodybuilders. You expect them to go on a Ninja 400 and learn how to ride a motorcycle, and you think that that's going to keep them in the hobby? They're going to want to keep riding? No, of course not. And in the same breath, he said, you know how many Ninja 400s I've sold where they leave this dealership, the bike has 1 mile on it, and they leave this dealership pinned onto the main boulevard. And he said, those are the ones that are issues. Those are the Ninja 400s that I don't see return, meaning that his dealership wouldn't see that bike for service again because it would get crashed or the owner would die or whatever the case may be. It absolutely has to do with the rider. It's what's inside that helmet that really counts. Yes, you're going to have people that say you're lame for not wanting to top out your bike, or you're lame for not wanting to wheelie, you're lame for not going on group rides, you're lame for looking new because your seating position isn't quite perfect and the way you hold the throttle isn't quite the way it's supposed to be. Man, don't listen to any of that stuff. The most important thing is that you're safe and that you remain alive. So that way, later on, you can fix all those things. I mean, I don't think it's very fun to be dead. So if you're dead or seriously injured and a complete body cast, I mean, that's not very fun either. So just keep that in mind. If you get that need for speed, I totally get that, but take it on a track. Don't go up into the mountains and in the twisties and try to test your skills up there, regardless of how good of a rider you are. If you want to go up there just for fun and for the scenic views or whatever, yeah, absolutely. But if you're looking for speed, please do it on a racetrack. It's a controlled environment. It's very, very safe there. Way more safe than trying to even ride at 60, 70% of your skills on the street. It's just not worth it, you guys. So anyways, I hope that video was helpful. If you can, please like and subscribe, hit me in the comments, share any tips that you have that helped you when you were a new rider. And until next time, guys, we'll see you on the next one.